Welcome, everyone, to the Last Gasp Fantasy Sports Podcast, coming to you live from the Gibson Truck World studio here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visors, located at Celebration Point here in Gainesville, Florida. My name is TJ White, and my co-host, Brad Carmen. What's up, Brad?
How you doing this morning?
Dude, I'm pumped, man. I know there's no games going on right now, but after watching that Atlanta Braves game last night and they're going to the World Series, I have to mention it this morning, man. I'm so amped right now for this show and taking that energy from last night into this show, man.
Yeah, the problem with no game right now, that means we one less game this week, so we have more buys and more people we have to fill in to play.
Yeah, I mean, this week, too. Last week, I think there were 14 games, compared to the normal 16, and I think there's 6 teams off, so I think there's one less game this week. So
Exactly.
It's a huge bye week out there. So it's great to move forward. I want to say thanks to our sponsors, Archer Electric Services Company, Piesano Stone-Fired Pizza, Door-to-Door Transport, Gibson Truck World, and one of our newest sponsors, Viking Companies. They've joined the team. They're here to support us on our podcast and this live show that we do every Sunday morning, and it's great to have them on, man.
Yeah, I love getting all these new sponsors, and if anybody's out there that's interested in sponsoring, just please get a hold of it at Last Gasp through our email or through our Facebook page, and just if you're interested, we can get you on. If you have a 30-second commercial, we can add you to our commercials during the mid-show.
Yeah, so great. Let us know. Hit us up. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube at Last Gas Fantasy Podcast every Sunday morning live right here where you're tuning in either on Facebook or YouTube. Make sure you hit that like and subscription button where you're going to be able to get a notification of when we go live and talk about it, and you'll be able to get your updates for your fantasy info. You can also find us on all social media platforms and any place that you partake in downloading podcasts or anything like that, Spotify, Google Podcast, Overcast, and over 39 other platforms. So just hit us up, listen to us. We really appreciate it. We've had great feedback so far, and it's been a great takeoff, man. Last week, as we get started on this, we had the Piesano's Last Gasp of the Week, where we get your question. We put out a question, you answer it. It goes live on Facebook. You answer it during the week. And last week's question was, which tight end would have the most yards and how many yards they were going to have? And the lucky winner that week, who picked the right one, who picked Travis Kelce, was Micah. He comes out here. He comes out here, played cornhole on Thursday nights, and it's great to see him win, to get that $25 gift card to Piesano's, and be able to eat locally, man. And that's one of the great sponsors of the show.
Yeah, and Piesano's has got one of the best menus out there for Italian food.
Yeah, and take home too. It's fresh. It stays hot. It's easy to bring home and reheat. So if you get a chance, we're glad that he won this week. This week's question, you have another hour to go get in it. Put your entry in, is which QB will throw the most interceptions? Now I know Brad's throwing these ones that are out there that are kind of crazy, where you're going to just have to throw a quarterback out there, and you might have good luck throwing Jameis Winston out there,
I was going to say Jameis Winston plays this week, so it shouldn't be hard, guys.
Yeah, so you don't know who it's going to be this week, but throw out a QB who has the most interceptions, and the tiebreaker is how many total yards does he have. So throw out a name and total yards, and that could be you taking home that $25 gift card to Piesano's this week. So take a look at that. Grab them. It's that simple. Go on our page, put in an answer, and we'll go from there. So, Brad, I think let's start recapping last week's game and get into it.
Well, we had a great game last week. I'm going to start out with the Bills and the Titans. The game had 7 lead changes. I mean, it was fantastic. Ended up with the Bills trying to score, going for it on 4th down to either get a touchdown, win the game, or at least to extend it to make a field goal, and they didn't make the 4th down. Josh Allen tried to rush it, did not make the 1st down, and they ended up losing the game 31-34 to the Titans.
And what's crazy about that, Brad, is the Bills hadn't allowed a 50-yard rusher, let alone 100 yards. Think about that. 50 yards of rushing in an NFL game is not a hard feat for a team to do, and they are that dominant of a defense. And Derrick Henry does it in one play.
Yeah. Well, I was telling you earlier, I was down by 50 points going into this game. I needed basically 6 touchdowns. I had Josh Allen and Derrick Henry, and they both ended up with 3 touchdowns.
Oh, and when you watch that play where he breaks it out, and he's running away from safeties at 234 pounds and runs 78 yards for a touchdown, it's a freak of nature. And I forget who posted on Twitter or who was that I'll give the credit to, but they said Derrick Henry's the guy when you were in Madden in 03 and 04, that was the player you created. Like, he was the biggest, fastest, strongest dude that just dominated everybody. And it's true. He's in a league of his own in running backs right now.
And another thing that I thought was interesting is Derrick Henry's been getting about 30 carries per game.
Yep.
This game, he only got 10 less carries, but he still had 143 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Well, when you're running the ball 78 yards on one touch, that saves your body. That's the crazy part. The more that he runs like that, the less he's going to get hit. That's the crazy.
And Tannehill had a pretty good game too.
Yeah.
I mean, no touchdowns, but he had 216 yards. But Josh Allen on the other side, who had a losing effort, still had another marvelous game, 353 yards and 3 touchdowns himself.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. It always looked like that was the Bills' game to lose, and the Titans were going to have to win it.
Yes.
And then they took the lead at the end, and then it was like the Bills were put on notice, and for them to not go for the field goal to tie it up there at the end, I get it. He's a good running quarterback. He can dive up the middle, and he slips and falls short. But you have to have confidence that your team is going to win in overtime there, don't you? Or do you just not want to face Derrick Henry in overtime?
I mean, I think that's what it is. Derrick Henry always gets tougher and stronger in the second half. I think Buffalo's like, let's win it now.
Yeah, and it's a hard decision. They're 4-2. I think they've got some breathing room in their division, so I think they're not worried with New England and Miami and the Jets all being pretty bad with 2 losses. They've got a comfortable lead in that division. I'm going to talk about a couple other teams that have a pretty good sized lead in their division already with only 6 games in. So I think they had some room for error, but it's a tough game for them to lose, especially in it's on their divisional side. I mean, so.
Well, that was a game that should have went in overtime, but we did have 3 games that did go in overtime this last week. And in that game, Stephon Diggs caught his second touchdown of the year.
Yeah.
But what's more amazing to me is his brother Tevron Diggs caught his second touchdown of the year too. For the Dallas Cowboys.
No, yeah, and he picks it off. What is he at, 7 now?
He has 8 interceptions and 2 touchdowns this season so far in 7 weeks. The Dallas game was another game that I thought was crazy ending. 6 minutes and 23 seconds left in the game. There were 3 touchdowns and a field goal in the last part of the game going into overtime.
Yeah, no, and that's the crazy thing. He's probably one of the top defensive backs right now in the league with what he's putting up this year. And he goes and he makes a heck of a play, intercepts it, and then gives up a 75-yard bomb on the very next play. And that's football for you. That's NFL.
But that's Diggs. Diggs jumps the routes, and that's why I'm sorry. He does have 7 interceptions this year. I was thinking we're already in week 8, but
you're already counting one this week. You're like, oh, he's going to get another one this week. Don't worry about it.
He jumps the route for those interceptions. That's why he's such an aggressive player, and he jumps the route. But if he misses, it leaves a bomb open. That's what happened. I mean, it left Bourne open.
Yeah, wide open for the bomb. Yeah, for sure.
He only had 1 catch. It was for a touchdown.
No, that's it's great to see. But you're right. The other 2 games were the Seattle and the Steelers game that went into overtime. And that game, the Steelers had that in hand for the most part. And Seattle with Geno Smith, he came in and played very well and cool and collective. He might not have been just some monster game, but he was very good for filling in and serviceable for that team. He did what they needed.
Geno played well. I mean, he was 23 out of 32 for 209 yards and a touchdown. I mean, besides the fumble that lost him the game, he played a very conservative and well-played game.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's tough to get in there and you do everything right, and then one play in overtime costs you the game, and then Pittsburgh wins on a kick. We talked about Alex Collins earlier in the week, last show, as a sleeper, as a waiver wire pickup and sleeper pickup. He had 20 carries, 101 yards, and a TD. So you think about that if you could have picked him up late last week, and if you got that in your fantasy 17 points on a standard league, you're kicking butt with that player.
Yeah, he had a great game. He did get a little nicked up during the game, so we do need to watch that this week. I'm pretty sure he's going to be on the field playing. Yep. So he's another with Carson still being out. Matter of fact, I was reading today, they're not sure when Carson's going to come back. If he has the eligibility to come back in 2 more weeks, but they were talking about maybe not bringing him back because the neck injury is so serious.
Yeah, no, you're right, and that's one of the things you got to look out for the player's safety first and foremost.
Right.
We go to the next game. You had the Vikings and Panthers go to OT too. I mean, in that game right there, the offense, but the Vikings were putting up now back with Delvin Cook in that lineup is just, it's night and day. It seems like they had a couple weeks where they were struggling, even with a good Mattson backing up. But it seems like they play better with him in there and around him.
Yeah, I just traded last week for Kirk Cousins and got Kirk Cousins on my team, and so I had a choice: Kirk Cousins or Josh Allen. I ran with Josh Allen all year, so
Yep.
I kept him in the
Yep.
game. But Kirk Cousins had a great game:
Yeah, I mean,
33 for 48, 373 yards, and 3 touchdowns.
no, that's unreal. And we got a call last week between Adam Thielen and Kadarius Toney. Tony got hurt on the 6th play of the game, but he already had 3 receptions and 38 yards in 6 plays. He was in set for a monster week. But Thielen, I mean, had, like you said, had 11 receptions, 126 yards, a TD, and for fantasy, if you're doing PPR there, that's unreal.
That's
That's
fantastic.
23 plus 6 is 29 points from a wide receiver is you can't ask for anything better than that. He's been a monster whenever, but I think it's the threat of Cook coming out of the backfield
Yes.
that allows for Thielen to open up down the field on the out routes, on the in routes, and the long ball over the top. So
Yeah, 'cause-
I think that because he's healing the flats and those linebackers pull up instead of covering him short, and it's just great to
Yeah,
have him
'cause-
back out in the field.
Yeah, Dalvin ended up having a Derrick Henry type game: 29 carries, 140 yards, and a touchdown.
No, it's great. It really is. Once again, Henry Ruggs on the next game, Raiders Broncos. Raiders lose their coach, come out and perform like they're handling business, and that's what this league is. It's about business. It's not about who your friends are and who your enemies are. It's about going out, you do what you're supposed to do on the field, and you survive. And they did. They won 34-24 against a tough Bronco team that they probably shouldn't have won that game on the road.
Yeah, I was shocked that the Raiders came out and win. Now I've now become a Raiders fan, not because of this game, because I found out he has some local ties to the community now.
Oh, really?
Yes, the AD at Newberry High School is the coach is his father-in-law.
Oh, okay. So,
So-
so that's great. No, but so Ruggs had 3 receptions, 97 yards, and a TD. Noah Font, if you haven't picked him up, he might be out there in some leagues. Tight end, 9 receptions, 97 yards, and a TD. So these names out here, fantasy-wise, take a look at them. They're out there. See if they're in your league and compare them to the stats that your players are getting. Are they getting more points? Are they getting less points? I mean, that's what you do right now. You see these players that are getting consistent action, and whether or not they're comparing to how your guys are doing. And don't fall in love with the player you drafted.
Yeah, I mean Noah Font ended up having a great game. 9 receptions, 97 yards. That's fantastic for him.
You got the next game there. Cardinals 37, Browns 14. The Cardinals roll on again. Still the only undefeated team. They're sitting at 6-0, and it just seems like they're clicking on all cylinders still.
Yeah, and this guy we were talking about earlier, Donovan Peoples-Jones, 4 receptions, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, I know a lot of you are upset because he didn't get in the game Thursday night because he had an injury in the pregame. He stretched a groin out, and they're not chancing him right now playing. So we just need to keep an eye on him for next week.
Yeah, because they already played Thursday, so he didn't get to play, and that's hard about the fantasy owners. I know you want to keep him in there if he's active, but when you find out at game time decision and
Yeah,
that happens. That is what fantasy's about. You're hoping that these guys will stay healthy and get a few passes and get you some points and get your league a win. The other thing too is to note on the Cardinals is that their coach has been out.
yeah.
Kingsbury has been out, and he comes back this week, and they're still winning. So that team and that organization is rolling. You've got to be happy with them, and really, really impressed with how they've done.
Yeah, Kyler Murray's just really performing. He's been consistent every single week.
Now it's can he stay healthy?
Exactly.
That's what's going to be the question. You had the Chiefs beating Washington 31-13. You got the Ravens over the Chargers.
Now that's a surprise game right there. I mean, I'm disappointed on the Chargers' performance on that game. Now Lamar, he's just been so great lately. I mean,
And he really has. I mean, and that score right there is the reason that I was shocked. I didn't expect it. And the Chargers were never in this game. I think it was like 20-0 at some point. And that was before the Chargers even scored their first one. Latavius Murray got 9 carries, 53 yards TD, 2 receptions, 12 receiving yards. Mark Andrews, we didn't mention him last week on our show. We should have probably. He played it for his family member that passed.
Yes.
And he had a career game for him, 2 TDs, huge yardage, huge receptions. And it just goes to show you that these guys really, really, really want to show out in a game like that.
The Ravens and the Browns are showing that the next man up. Baltimore had some major injuries going into the season, and it's the next man up, and they've done it. The Browns just now had Chubb and Hunt get hurt, and Johnson steps up, next man up.
Yep. And the same with the Rams Giants. The Giants are injury depleted.
Yes, they are.
And it's the Rams go in, do what they're supposed to do. They win 38-11. Darrell Henderson is back, seems a little more healthier than he was the last couple of weeks. 21 carries, 78 yards and a TD. He had 2 receptions, 29 yards, and 1 receiving TD. And then Cooper Kupp, who is Stafford's go-to out there, has another just work-like performance. 9 receptions, 130 yards, 2 TDs, and is just slowly becoming a top 5 receiver right now.
And, Aaron Rodgers is showing that first game against New Orleans was a fluke, guys. 24-14 over the Bears. He continues to roll.
Yep. And, the next game here, Packers 24, Bears 14. A name that we mentioned last week, just like Alex Collins, we talked about Khalil Herbert filling in for the injured player, and then the one that was on COVID. He carries the ball 19 times, 97 yards, 1 TD, 2 reception, 15 yards. And as a fantasy owner, if you pick up a guy and he gets you 15 points at that point on a random night, that you can't ask for anything. And there's some concerns on the other side for the Packers with Aaron Jones because he's not doing as well as many thought he was going to do. And he doesn't seem to be the workhorse that some have, but he's been serviceable, but just not the productions that some of the top running backs in the league are getting.
Yeah, the next game, the Colts beat the Texans 31-3. I kind of hoped the Texans would come out and play, and I predicted them to win. I was totally wrong. Jonathan Taylor, 14 carries, 145 yards. That's over 10 yards a carry.
Yeah, no, it's great. Brad, we're going to go to what surprised you the most of last week's game. And, I normally always start off on this, but I'm going to let you go first this week. And I'm going to let you tell me what surprised you the most this week.
My game was the Pittsburgh-Seattle game. How well Geno Smith played. In a losing effort because of the fumble, he kept the Seattle in the game and took them into overtime against Pittsburgh. Yes, they ended up losing, but Geno Smith played a really good game for coming off the bench.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing too, is that he really, really did play a managed game,
right?
And that's big time for that, And so we'll see how he moves forward. That he fits that system really well for being slow, methodical, grinding, to play the nasty defense and not turn the ball over much. And I think they can win a couple more games in the season. They might not make the playoffs, but they're going to be good.
Yeah, again, it's another team that's had some injuries. They lost Russell, they lost Carson, and now they're having to step up. The next guy's stepping up. Geno stepped up. Alex Collins stepped up. So
yeah, no, it's great. So the next thing, Brad, my biggest surprise of the week, and I think anybody's biggest surprise of the week, were the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're talking good about them this week, Brad. We're not dogging them. We're not talking about the off-the-field issues. We're not talking about any of that. Get their first win of the season. And we mentioned it on the show because it was live during the time that they got their first field goal of the season early in the game and then go on to kick a game-tying 54-yarder that barely goes over the crossbar and looked like it was in right field comes back to the middle of the goalpost. And then what a play. They throw the ball down the field. He takes a knee with 1 second left. The players touch him. People are saying that if they wouldn't have touched him, the time would have ran out. The rule is that he gives himself up and doesn't make a football play. That means that they can call a timeout right away. Calls a timeout with 1 second left, and he hits a 53-yarder. So they get 3 field goals when they hadn't had any field goals all year and win the game, and Jacksonville gets off that 20-game losing streak.
And I got to say, that's a pretty brave call. You have 5 seconds left on the clock to run a play down the middle for they needed 9 yards. They went 10, and get in 4 seconds to get the first down and set them up for the field goal. I thought that was a pretty gutsy call.
Well, I mean, and the thing too is, they looked in shambles the 5 plays before that.
Yes.
They get an offside or they get a false start, then they get a holding, and then I think it was a fumble or something that he falls back on. Now it's like 3rd and 30, I felt like. And then they get a long play, get the first down, and then they kick the field goal. I mean, you couldn't have scripted the Jags to get their first win any different than that. And I mean, if you're a Jags fan, we got a bunch of local Jags fans. Congratulations. Your 20-game losing streak's done, and here comes your next 20-game losing streak. So it's going to start right back up for you. So I hope you enjoyed that and celebrated that this week. So congratulations.
Why don't they just stay in London, maybe?
Well, that's a whole other story. But it's also because London's accepted them as their fan base, and for them to get a win in London
was big.
is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's put Miami on notice. And we've heard so many rumor trades between Watson going there from Houston, and where's Tua going, and is the coach you're on, has he got his signing papers already, walking papers already? I mean, it's the rumors are swirling in Miami for Flores and that team. So, when you get beat by the Jags or the Lions, you're probably struggling. We want to say thank you to Archer Electric Services Company. They are bringing you over 30 years of leadership and experience in both commercial and residential electric needs to Gainesville and surrounding communities. Piesano's Stone-Fired Pizza. Whether you're looking for a quick lunch or a dinner destination to meet up with friends and family, Piesano's is your place to go. Celebrate life's most memorable moments with delicious dishes, whether in our dining room or yours. Also to Gibson Truck World for being our studio sponsor, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill Advisors, Weeby Marketing, and Viking Companies for their continued support of the podcast and program.
We do have a couple questions coming up on Facebook message board. Will Tyreek Hill play today?
I think he does. I think he'll play today. What do you? I mean,
he played. He ended up coming back last week and playing, and having a great game.
Yeah, I mean, he put up good numbers.
Yeah,
still a player. They're at 3-3. They can't afford losses.
No, I agree, and I think if he's able to play, he will play.
Yeah, and so I would say yes. He's going to play this week. He's going to get his normal. He'll get his normal catches. He'll get his deep routes. He'll get his slants. Now, the question is, will he stay healthy to play the whole time? Now, I can't answer that. So if he gets rolled up on or hurt, that'll be something else. So I can't help you there. But I think that he plays and is serviceable to start for sure.
My point, if he's on your roster, I think you've got to play him. Now, watch the last-minute reports just to make sure he is playing. But if he's on your roster, play him.
Well, and the thing, too, is if you're probably winning your league or up in the top 2 or 3 if you got Tyreek on your team.
Of course.
And there's 6 teams on bye weeks this week. So you've got players that are you might not have a lot of room to be taking off Tyreek Hill out of your lineup if all the other players on bye weeks and doing stuff like that. So yeah, I play him. It's definitely a good call to play him.
The other question we've got on the board right now is, what's y'all's vibe on Julio Jones?
So I'm on the sailboat. I'm on the train to let him ride. Until I hate to say it because he's a stud. He's 11th season, 12th season. He's an all pro. He's done it year in and year out. He's just been the pros pro. No issues. But he's I don't see it happening in Tennessee. A.J. Brown's coming back. I think he's going to start getting some catches. I think that he made a heck of a catch last week. Did you see the catch, Brad?
Yes.
It hits off the defender's helmet, bounces in the air. He drags the choke, gets it for 49 yards, but that's all the yardage he got last week.
Exactly.
And it took a miraculous play that him to drag the toe and get it to get it. So I'm not sold on him yet. So keep an eye on him is what I'm going to say. If he starts blowing up, yes, put him in, but keep an eye on him. I'm not sold on him right now.
I have a player that reminds me of Julio Jones on my fantasy team, Robbie Anderson.
Yep.
They both had their years. They were great wide receivers. They still can perform. They're still out there and can do it. Last week, I sat all day watching Robbie Anderson, and finally at the end of the game, he caught a touchdown, which was his second catch of the game. And ended up getting me 10 points. If you have nobody else, yes, play Julio Jones. I wanted to bench Robbie Anderson this week. I had nobody else. I'm playing Robbie Anderson. So that's my answer. If you don't have anybody, yes, Julio Jones is a viable player. But if you have someone that's going to get 5, 6, 7 catches during the game, play somebody else.
That's the thing. I just went and looked up Julio's stats just to kind of recap. Is he had 3 for 59 yards, and that one play was 48 or 49. So he only saw the ball 2 times, and they only had 18 receptions for that team in that game because Derrick Henry is a workhorse for them. And so, there are other viable options, I think, right now that are, you got Cole Beasley catching 7. You've got Stephon Diggs catching 9. You got Manuel Sanders catching 5. All of them had more yardage and more receptions than Julio Jones, and that's on one team on the opposite side. So I know that's the Bills, but still, it's kind of giving you an understanding of where he's at in that pecking order. For
exactly. If he's not, one good thing I can say about Robbie Anderson is they threw the ball at him 8 times. Just because he only caught 2, or maybe 9 times, he only caught 2. If they're not throwing the ball at your receiver, he's not going to catch him.
And that's the thing. That they're not throwing it. That's a good point, Brad. Top performers this week. I know we talk about it all the time, and I know Brad's not allowed to talk about this team. No, I'm just kidding. You can always talk about this team. I'm talking about the Dallas Cowboys. You know, they could have gone in there and laid an egg and not come back on that game. And they were up. It was an up and down game. They gave it a lead up. They give up some plays. But what Dak Prescott has done for a comeback player of the year, going 36 for 51, 445 in yardage, 3 TDs. CeeDee Lamb, his go-to receiver right now, 9 receptions, 149 yards, 2 TDs. And they complete the comeback overtime win, you know, against New England, in New England. They're 5-1 right now, Brad.
Yes.
And I went and looked at their schedule because I was curious to see where they were going. They play 5 interdivisional games, which is against I wouldn't say they're the worst teams, but they're not very strong. I mean, you got those 3 teams that are just making it through. And then they have 2 other games that I think are questionable on that game left. Out of the 11 games, they play 5 interdivisional, and the other 2 games they have at the Chiefs and against the Cardinals at home. They could very easily win all those games but those 2.
Yeah.
So they could be 9-2 plus 5-1. They're 14-3 on the season, and they're leading that. They're in the playoffs locked, and they're getting a bye.
Yeah, say divisional champions and a bye.
I mean, and if you would have told me that with Dak coming back and that to be 14-3, I would have told you you're nuts.
Yeah, I'd take it in a heartbeat.
And that's America's team, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you know, it's great to see them playing better, doing better, and the weapons there. You were wondering when this was going to happen, and now it's happening. And I really believe it's on the other side of the ball that this has done well for them. Bringing in Dan Quinn,
yes.
Micah Parsons from Penn State comes in, solidifies the middle linebacker, or you want to say standing DN, playing all over the field, and just really have done a tremendous job building that team.
And, you know, they would have lost the game if it wasn't for Trayvon Diggs making the interception, running back for a touchdown. That's what brought him back in the game. Yes, they let up a touchdown the next play, but that is what brought the energy back in that game.
Yeah, no, it is true. You know, Brad, we're going to go to the question I have right before the break here. We got a few minutes before we get to our middle break here, but I wanted to talk about buys, and I wanted to talk about what you do with players that are off the bench on buys. And this week's bye weeks are the Buffalo Bills, Dallas Cowboys, Jacksonville Jaguars, Los Angeles Chargers, Minnesota Vikings, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So those are your teams on bye this week, those 6 teams. So that's why you have less games, because those 3 games aren't happening. But what I want to ask for, with those many players out, for instance, myself, I have 7 players on bye and 1 on IR with Michael Thomas for New Orleans. I don't have any options to start but who I've got, and I don't want to drop anybody. Have you ever played anybody knowing that they're not going to get you any points, or knowing that they're on a bye, or knowing that they're hurt because you just can't risk dropping them for the rest of your season in the outlook?
Yeah, it's a difficult situation. Yes, I've done it. Sometimes you've got to play for the season, not the week. You know, if you are 3-3 right now and you're mid-pack in your league, you know, you've got to look and say, hey, can I not play this player this week, take the loss, but still be in the playoff runs and everything? Sometimes you can minimize your damage. You look at your defense, you look at your tight ends positions. Are they only getting you 4-3 points a week? You know, if that's the case, look for that wide receiver that you can go out there and get you 7 or 8 points and gain those 4 points. 4 points can win you a game in a week easily.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the key. You nailed it. If you're 5-1 in your league right now, and you don't want to get rid of your number 1 defense so that you can keep a spot for a wide receiver or running back open so that you can have them on your bench, so that if somebody for the next week's bye, take that risk of playing a defense that doesn't get you any points, or that's on a bye week. I'm sorry. Yeah. If he's on a bye week, let him in there, and you have the flexibility. If you're like me, on the bottom of the barrel trying to fight your way into the playoffs, you don't have an option. You get rid of him, you put the points in there, and you try to win each and every week, because you don't have the flexibility to keep players that aren't getting you points. And so, you know, it's an interesting topic. We're trying to bring these things up each week, something that's going to be different for each time. You know, Brad?
Yeah. After we come back from the break, I got a question about that for you.
Okay. Yeah. And so, you know, it's great. It's these kinds of questions that we want to help fantasy owners and people that watch the show and fantasy things like that to heal this out. So we're going to take a break right now. We'll get back to you right after that.
Gibson Truck World's expert team of sales and service staff will show you why we have been the pioneer of used trucks since 1995. With our 1-year bumper-to-bumper warranty valid across the entire United States, our exclusive 15-day exchange policy, and our $1,000 best price guarantee, it's easy to see why we're the #1 used truck dealership in all of Florida. Please call, visit, or explore our website today to see for yourself why we are the king of trucks.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Visor's Tailgate and Rooftop Bar, located on top of Spurrier's Gridiron Grill in Celebration Point, is now open Thursday through Saturday. Visor's covered open-air bar is the perfect place to gather after work or meet up with friends. You'll love the handcrafted cocktails and elevated shareables available every Thursday through Saturday. Visor's Tailgate and Rooftop Bar is perfect for fans of great food, great drinks, and great weather. Visors not required. High spirits are highly encouraged. Visit spurriers.com/visors.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Last Gasp Fantasy Sports Podcast, coming to you live from the Gibson Truck World studio here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Visors, located at Celebration Point here in Gainesville, Florida. I want to pay a special thanks to Archer Electric Services Company, Piesano Stonefire Pizza, Weeby Marketing, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, Gibson Truck World, and last but not least, our newest sponsor, Viking Companies, for their continued support of the show. We couldn't do this show without you, so thank you all for your continued support and letting us be up here talking fantasy football and fantasy sports and NFL for this hour show we do every Sunday morning, Brad.
So, TJ, before the break, I mentioned I have a question for you. So, I'm going to come back with this question. It's about the buys and the stuff. Okay, so on your roster, your quarterback, your starting quarterback, has finished his bye. So we're in week 7 now, and
Yep.
you know your quarterback's now available again for you. You have a second string quarterback sitting down on your roster. Do you drop him, or do you hold him so that someone else doesn't pick him up because he's a viable start for somebody else?
Yeah, so it's a great problem to have, Brad. The reason I say that is because you know people want him.
Yes.
And you know that he could be a top 10 quarterback. So let's say you have 2 top 10 quarterbacks. You pick up Stafford late, and you already had Pat Mahomes, right? With Pat Mahomes coming back, or if in this situation he comes back, use him as trade. Don't drop him. Don't just give him up to somebody else that can pick him up and then let them win their league. Put him out on the trade block. Say, hey, is anybody needing a quarterback? I did a trade this week. I traded for Mike Evans and Joe Burrow and gave up Trevor Lawrence and Antonio Brown.
So am I going out there looking at the teams that have quarterbacks going on bye and then looking at my buys and saying, okay, I've got a running back that's out and trying to get, a trade for something that I need?
Yeah, definitely. You're going out there. And the thing is, a lot of people don't want to trade because they feel like they're giving up something that's valuable. But you have to look at what you're getting in return at that time too. Like you can't just be in a bubble and say, I know that this guy's good. I drafted him or I picked him up, and I don't want to get rid of him. Sometimes it's worth giving up a higher player to get a lower player, knowing that he's playing the teams like the Lions and Houston and the Jaguars and Miami coming up in 3 or 4 games, to know that, oh, he might not have a bunch of points now, but in 3 or 4 games, he might get that extra 10 or 12. And that you have to pay attention to that stuff, Brad. So it's really about knowing the differences and understanding what you're getting in return and being willing to give up. So yes, I would say on those quarterback situations, keep them until you don't need them, and then trade them if you can, if somebody wants them. We talked a little bit about what our surprises were and who were the best players of the week. We're going to do a little bit of a disappointments and then go into injury report. One of the big disappointments for me was the Bills game, Brad. We talked a little bit of detail in that about them losing in that. But the other one to me is the Detroit Lions going 0-6. The Goff trade and Stafford trade, it was supposed to be better for both teams, and it seems like the Rams are making out like fat cats in this deal. And are they on their way to another 0-6 season, 0-16, 0-17 now? I wrote 16 because I'm used to that, but it's 0-17, and they play each other this week.
Yep.
So is this what's in store for Lions fans right now?
Unfortunately.
That's what you see, huh? I mean, it really is going to be like that. I mean, who was your disappointment for the week? And then we'll go to injuries, man.
Well, I agree with you on the Chargers game, but my disappointment of the week was the Miami Dolphins. They headed to London to play the winless Jacksonville Jaguars with a healthy Tua for the first time in a while.
Yeah.
Leave London with a loss and trade rumors starting. Predictions are Watson will be traded to Miami before the trade deadline of November 2nd, but he'll be suspended for the rest of the season. And then Tua would be dealt to Washington.
Oh man, something's going to happen there. They can't just sit there and take those all the time. So I have a feeling you're right. Something's going to happen there, and I'm just nervous that as a Miami fan, you thought you were going to be in a positive direction. You thought you had your franchise quarterback. You have a great coach that's rebuilt that program there and rebuilt some attitudes in those locker room. And it's just not shown on the field. Yeah. I mean, you got rid of a bunch of DBs and you got rid of the defense of some stuff. So it's just a lot of work down there, and it just doesn't seem like it ever is going to get to where they want it to be with the Dan Marino days.
And with them showing no confidence in Tua, yeah. I don't see the 1-5 Dolphins turning around their season this year.
No, not at all. Just a reminder, you can find us each week live here on Facebook and YouTube. Send us your comments live during the show. We'll answer them. We'll get you taken care of. You'll go in there, hit us like. If you need any questions answered during the week, shoot us an email at lastgasfantasy@gmail.com or check out our webpage and click on our sponsors at www.lastgasfantasy.com. You'll see all our sponsors on the main page. We put them on there. Click on there. Go link. Tell them about how you heard them from our show and really support them and everything they do. Also,
well, so we do have a comment on the Facebook message board since you're talking about it. It says a week early, but the Jags get their second win and beat Seattle with Trevor getting 300 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns. Well, that's an interesting one because with Seattle having the injuries they have with Carson out and with Russell out, is that a possibility that Jags go in and beat Seattle?
I said I wasn't going to pick the Jags until they won a game, and then they go and win a game last week. Now they're making me second guess my decisions here. I think they're getting better. I think they had to have a win at last week. I think if that was it was going to blow up the season. They were going to lose their locker room, and they were going to get some downtrodden there. I believe they can win that game. It'll be a coin flip though. I think they're going to have coin flips for a lot of games this year.
And they're on bye this week, right? So they're coming back off a bye.
Yep.
Everybody should be healthy.
Yep. So, and from his college days, Urban Meyer, when you gave him a bye week, was the best design. When he could scheme up plays and watch that and do that, he was one of the best. I mean, look at him in national championship games. When he could read and understand what the defenses were doing and had time to scheme against them directly, he was almost unbeatable.
Yes.
So that's a positive thing for him moving in that direction when you look at it that way. So it's great there. It really is something to talk about. Also, a couple minutes left to answer the last gas question of the week. Make sure you get on there. Tell us which QB is going to be throwing the most interceptions and how many yards are they going to have as the tiebreaker. So get on there, throw down a quarterback, and tell us what you think, and you can win yourself a $25 gift card to Piesano's Stone-Fired Grill.
Well, with an hour and 20 minutes before the kickoff, you want to run down the injury report real quick?
Yeah, let's do it. Do you want to start it up?
Yep. Okay, let's start with the Ravens. You got running back Latavius Murray out with the ankle, and wide receiver Sammy Watkins, he's got a thigh injury. He'll be out this week too.
Yep. You've got Curtis Samuel of the Washington football team. Are they ever going to find a mascot for that team? Because I'm about done saying WTF or WFT Washington football team. I know everybody else is too. So Curtis Samuel and Cam Sims are both out. Antonio Gibson's questionable. So be on the lookout for his backup and who could be there. I got a question about it early in the week. It's, should I start Antonio Gibson on an email? I said, if he's healthy and he's going to start, yes, you have to start him. But if he's not, then you got to be responsible and understand that you won't know that till game time decision.
Correct.
And that's when you need to wait till right when the game starts, see what the report is, and see if he's playing.
On the Dolphins, you've got wide receiver Devontae Parker, shoulder hamstring, and wide receiver Preston Williams with the groin, both questionable. I think you actually got the whole team questionable.
And by the way, the backup for Antonio Gibson is Jarrett Patterson. That's
Yes.
a waiver wire guy we got later. He's a waiver wire guy. Look at him up. Jarrett Patterson. That's a name there. So we like to try to give you the backup for players that are hurt if we need it. So pay attention and see that guy, and then maybe just pick him up and put him on your bench if you have a spot, so you're able to do it and not burn up time there. The Chiefs, Michael Burton and Jody Fortson are both out. Tyreek Hill is questionable with a quad injury, but like we said, we think he's going to play, and quads are a little bit better than hamstrings or ankles, so you can play through that typically. So I think he's going to be okay.
Yeah, and we'll back up to the Giants. You got Barkley, Galladay, and Tony. They all look like they're going to be out this week.
Yep. And you got Ingram still on calf. You're saying, their whole offensive playbook is down to Daniel Jones, and hopefully his concussion stays healthy.
Exactly.
You got Chester Rogers, wide receiver for the Titans, out with a groin. You got Julio Jones' hamstring and Jeremy McNichols' ankle are both questionable. We mentioned McNichols a couple weeks ago and how he stepped up when AJ and Julio were both out. So, keep an eye on them if you picked him up and he's done well for you.
And, going back to that question we had earlier about Julio Jones coming with this hamstring injury and being questionable, there's another reason I might be looking for another wide receiver there.
Yeah, no, it really is. And so it's exactly right. You also have, for the Lions, you have TJ Hawkinson knee, DeAndre Swift groin, and Jason Canabia, which are
It's the fullback,
it's the fullback, but
all questionable.
they're all questionable, and you want to make sure that if you are looking at them and seeing how they're playing, making sure that they're going to start. I got TJ Hawkinson. He's a top. He seems like he hasn't been putting up numbers, but he's been consistently in the 10 range, and it's tough. So I wish we would go off just a little bit more and get a little healthier for me, but I don't think Goff's throwing very well there, and they're 0-6, so that's tough to keep him.
Sony Michel for the Rams is questionable.
Yep.
Nick Bowers is out for the Raiders, and just on the a game time decision that just came across is Waller's hurt for the Raiders.
Oh, that's right. Nick Waller. Waller is he was fine all week,
Right.
and then
Practice Friday, I believe it was.
practice on Friday tweaked something.
Yes.
And now he's game time decision. Keep an eye on that. He's a top 5 tight end when he is healthy and he is being thrown the ball. So
Isn't that weird? The first couple games,
Yeah.
that's all they saw was
Yeah.
Waller.
Yeah.
And now he's kind of,
it's Renfro.
yeah.
It's Renfro.
Hunter Renfro.
Yeah. It's
Scat back.
because it's definitely not Ruggs. Ruggs has taken 3 or 4, then taken him deep for the yard. But they need to go back to the well a little bit more with him. They need to go back to him.
If
They
he's
went
healthy,
34 or
yes.
whatever last week, but it's still he needs to get more involved in the
Yeah,
game.
if Waller's healthy, they need to
Yep.
get him in.
Questionable for the Texans, Chris Conley and Nico Collins. One's neck, one's foot, so they're both questionable. Cardinals tight end Darrell Daniels is out with a hamstring injury, so keep an eye on that.
The Bears, Jakeem Grant, the wide receivers, got an ankle injury. He's questionable, and so is Allen Robinson. Same thing, ankle.
Yeah, and it was funny because we were talking about it earlier with my trade. Antonio Brown and Rob Gronkowski are both out. That trade turned out well for me, but bad for the person it was for. Sorry, Dad. Didn't mean to get you like that.
When Antonio Brown has been, though, he's been a monster. So
Well, yeah, that's what it is. And he was 14, Evans was 15. It was a pretty fair trade. We're both fighting for playoff and trying to get in. So we thought that was a good deal, and just sucks that happens for him. So that's that.
over in Indianapolis, you got Jordan Wilkins is out with an illness, and then T.Y. Hilton is questionable with a quad.
Yeah. Okay. 49ers, you got Trey Lance, knee out. Who's that? I don't even know who's starting there with Garoppolo out and Lance out now, huh? That's wild. You got Seahawks, Chris Carson, IR out. We got to keep an eye on him. And Alex Collins, who we mentioned last week, is questionable. He was great last week and did and serviced well, but his backup we talked about. Brad has a sleeper pick here and a waiver wire ad, so keep an eye on this.
CD Dallas. He ended up with 10 points last week. He had a couple catches, a couple runs, and ended up with 10 points for a sleeper.
And also, Penny is coming back, so Rashad Penny might be back. So there's a three-headed horse out there in Seattle with Carson out. Keep an eye on them. See which one's going to start. If you want to pick one of those guys up late in the rounds, you still have an option to pick them up. They're only in like 4% of the leagues with those guys, so it's pretty good to get them.
And our last team is the Saints. Dwayne Washington's got a neck injury. He's the running back. Deontay Harris, wide receiver, hamstring, and Taysom Hill, backup quarterback, out with a concussion. All of them are out.
Yep. Once again, I want to say thanks to Archer Electric Services Company. They're bringing you over 30 years of leadership and experience in both commercial and residential electric needs to the Gainesville and surrounding communities. Piesano Stonefire Pizza, whether you're looking for a quick lunch or a dinner destination to meet up with friends and family, Piesano's is your place to celebrate life's most memorable moments and delicious dishes with your dining room. Also, special thanks to Gibson Truck Welding for being our studio sponsor and just really giving their continued support. Also, thank you to Viking Companies for their new sponsorship of our program, and we look forward to seeing everybody here and coming out here and supporting local businesses and around Central Florida. Now we're getting some outreach there. We're getting some people from Orlando and Jacksonville and things like that. It's great, and so we just really enjoy this and keeping this going. Brad, at this point in the show, we like to talk about how bad we did last week or how good we did, with the picks. Before we get there, I want to do one thing. 3 waiver wire guys we mentioned. We mentioned Dallas, CJ Dallas for the running back for Seattle. Penny might be coming back, so keep an eye on that. Jarrett Patterson, running back, Washington football team. Stevenson. I'm going to say Stevenson, running back from New England. I'll screw that name up in the front all the time. So the running back from New England, Stevenson, is a good pickup, good look right now. He might be available in a lot of teams. And lastly, Ricky Seals-Jones, tight end, Washington football team. He's going to be available in some leagues, so go out there, look at that, see if he's available, and be able to grab those players. I went 10-4 last week, Brad. The Jags, the Chargers, Cleveland, and Bills all killed me. Bills and Chargers, Bills should have won, and the Chargers just got beat up and down the field. But the Jags was a surprise, so that's all right. How'd you do?
I went 9-5. I reached out for Houston, thinking that they maybe could come back and pull off a victory this year, but I don't think I'll pick them the rest of the season. Miami, Buffalo, Carolina, and Denver all let me down as well.
Yeah, I mean, especially after Thursday night's game, Cleveland won.
Yeah.
I didn't pick them because I was like, I'm the same way with you. I go, man, I'm not picking Cleveland. Denver's gonna go into Cleveland. Baker Mayfield was hurt. They were starting their backup quarterback. They just licking their wounds from the previous game, and then they go out with neither of their starting running backs either.
Correct.
They pick up Dearness
Johnson,
and he goes from having to send out his videos to everybody to get an opportunity a couple years ago to an incredible game on a big time stage on Thursday night, and it's just fantastic to see how he did that and how he's playing through. So congratulations to him. Congratulations to Cleveland on Thursday night. You've got Washington at Green Bay. Green Bay is 9.5. Who are you taking?
Washington at Green Bay. I'm going Green Bay.
Okay, Green Bay. Kansas City at Tennessee. I think Kansas City, this is another big game. Tennessee just comes off the big game with the Bills. Kansas City's going into Tennessee again. I don't see how it's 5.5, especially with Kansas City being 3-3 and Tennessee being 4-2 and beating the Bills last week. Derrick Henry's going to have a monster day. And so it's – I picked Kansas City, but there's no question in my mind Tennessee's going to be in this game.
I'm going Tennessee. I agree with you about Derrick Henry having a big game. Kansas City's defense is not that good, and I think Derrick's going to run all over them. And just like they did Buffalo, shock them and win.
Yeah, I would not say that's a bad pick. I'm taking Kansas City. I think that they don't have room for error to be going and being a negative 500 team. So Kansas City has to start winning some of these big games to be in contention in the AL in their division side. Atlanta at Miami. This is a game of attrition right here. You got an 0-6 team in Atlanta coming off a bye week. They're going to be healthy. Miami's struggling going through their stuff, losing last week in London, coming back. I like Atlanta in this game. just for the fact that they're coming off a bye week and are going to be more prepared than Miami.
Yeah, I like Atlanta too. I think Pitts is going to score, get a second touchdown this season.
Nice. We got the Jets at New England. Jets coming off a bye. New England coming off that tough loss to your Cowboys. They are 6.5-point favorites. New England is. I'm taking New England at home. It's hard to play them at home. And when the Jets come to town, it's just a bigger game in general.
Matt Jones in New England have really impressed me. Against the Dallas game was a great game with them. I'm going New England as well.
Carolina at the New York Giants. I don't know how this is only 2.5. That blows my mind. I think Carolina is the better team, but the Giants have kept a lot of games close this year, surprisingly, which is why I think that's only a 2.5-point spread. I'm taking Carolina over the Giants.
I'm with you on this one.
So Cincinnati at Baltimore. Cincinnati is getting 6.5, going to Baltimore. Both teams are playing well. Baltimore is playing lights out, 5-1, with Lamar Jackson just dominating again. Put on a show against the Chargers. Does Cincinnati have a chance, Brad?
They have a chance. I don't think they're going to win. I think Lamar and Baltimore is going to pull this out. I think right now Lamar's our MVP of the season.
Yeah, no. So I'm taking Cincinnati, Brad. I think Cincinnati surprises Baltimore. I think Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, that connection has been
beautiful.
It's been dynamic this year for a rookie receiver. He's played well. He's performed well. Joe Mixon was banged up a couple weeks, but last week just carried the load. And that Cincinnati team, they beat Baltimore here. They take over that division. They'll be 5-2. Baltimore's 5-2 at that point. It's a divisional game. I mean, 6.5 is a lot for that game. And I think Cincinnati surprises people here and beats Baltimore at Baltimore.
If that happens, that division is going to tighten up, and we don't know who's going to come
No,
out.
I mean, exactly. You got Philadelphia at Las Vegas.
I'm going to Las Vegas.
Yep. And that's only a 2.5-point game.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
Vegas played well last week without their coach, with the new interim in. Derek Carr seems to be playing well. He's a must-start for me, Derek Carr, this week, so start him. Along with Matt Stafford is a must-start for the Rams. I'm taking Las Vegas with you. Jalen Hurts has played serviceable for Philly, and I'm not knocking them or Jalen Hurts. I'm surprised at how well he's doing, but I think Las Vegas handles it.
I agree.
We just talked about this. 15.5 Detroit is getting playing the Rams.
They're going to cover. Rams are going to cover.
Have you heard Luke Donald this week at all?
No.
He is dogging. He's not dogging him. He's excited to go hit his old former QB, Jared Goff.
Yeah.
He's told him he's coming for his lunch money, and he's ready to play. How many times they practice, and he wears the red jersey, and he's not allowed to hit him. Now he's wearing the other colored jersey, a gray or blue, whatever the Lions are going to wear, and he's going to see Luke Donald all day, and it's going to be great. So we're both taking the Rams on that game. Houston at Arizona. Another 17.5-point favorite. That's wild there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they'll cover that side of it, but they will win. I mean,
6-0 versus a 1-5 Houston team. Are they 1-5, 2-4? Whatever it is, they're right there. I think their only win was against Jacksonville.
Yeah, that's only win.
Week 1 against Jacksonville.
Don't give them another one.
Yeah, I think Arizona's going to take that easily. Kyler Murray's going to play out. You've got 3 back-to-back 10+ point spreads with Tampa now at Chicago at Tampa, and I'm biased against Tampa. Everybody knows that who listens to the show and knows who I am. I'm saying bench Leonard Fournette. Not bench him, sit him, do whatever you want to do. But I don't think he's going to have a very good day against Chicago's defense. I think that defense is very good up front. I think they're going to make Tom Brady beat them, and see if he can get them into the end zone. And I don't think they cover this. I think it's closer, just like last week's game was. They've got a lot of injuries. You lose Antonio Brown, you lose Gronkowski, and I think Tampa wins it, but it's not going to be a pretty game.
Well, this is my reach game. I'm going Chicago. Chicago's defense is tough. I love Tampa Bay. I agree with you with the injuries right now. I'm going to go Chicago on this one.
Nice. And I hope not.
I know.
Indy at San Fran. Indy is getting 3.5. Carson Wentz is playing serviceable. We don't know what San Francisco's doing, but that defense is good. They're coming off a bye week, which is nice because they've had a lot of reps to figure out who that's going to be. I think Indy gets the upset here, and I think Indy takes it at San Fran.
I'm going to Indianapolis as well.
Yeah.
I'm playing Carson Wentz this week because Josh Allen and Cousins are on bye for me. So I'm reaching on that one, but
Yeah.
I'm going for a victory here for them.
Yeah, we got New Orleans at Seattle. It's coming off a bye week. New Orleans. It's hard to have any faith in Jameis Winston there, and I think I'd have almost more faith in Geno Smith than Jameis Winston at this point, coming from that he came from my team. But I think the Saints go in after the bye week and beat Seattle in Seattle.
Okay, I'm going to go Seattle. I think Geno Smith's going to get his first win.
Nice. So, we're wrapping up the show here. Just the last little bit. One thing I want to touch on is Derek Carr and Stafford are must starts for me this week. Leonard Fournette, as I mentioned, he's got a tough game against the Bears. I don't think he's going to have a monster week like he had a couple weeks ago. My sleeper picks are Matt Ryan and the Atlanta offense against that Miami team. I think they're going to have a lot of things set up for Patterson and those guys. I think, like you said, Pitts is going to have a very big week. So keep an eye on that. I think those are some interesting stats. And before we leave, we always like to talk about a feel-good story, something that's good Samaritan acts that the teams do that are positive energy, positive vibes to the NFL, to their teams and players. This week, it's called the Broncos Fight Like a Bronco campaign. It took flight for a Broncos employee, Luke Kellerman, who was diagnosed with cancer in 2015. From joining the Broncos turf staff in 2010 to organizing and helping teams focus and efforts to fight against the cancer, Luke was a great force behind this campaign. The impact of his efforts is still being felt each day and every day through this program. The primary goal of Fight Like a Bronco is to encourage cancer screenings. Since the program began, the Broncos have contributed over $287,000 toward research and prevention. That has helped fund the breast cancer and other types of cancer screenings for nearly 74,000 people in Colorado. So, cancer's touches home to me with some things that I've dealt with personally, and I'm sure it's touched a lot of people. So, make sure you get your screenings. Make sure you get you checked out. If you have any lumps, Brad, if you have any questions, go see your local doctor. Go see your local nurse practitioner, like my wife. Go whoever it is. Go check them out, and don't think it's just going to go away, man. And it really is a hard thing to deal with.
Yeah, yesterday here at Celebration Point, they had the breast cancer walk. A great turnout. I'm glad to see the turnout and the support for it.
Yeah, it was a great thing. I saw some of my friends did it, and they make the walk, and those things just really change people's lives and open up worlds of research that we're never be able to do it. So we want to say thank you to Fight Like a Bronco and what those people are doing for the area in Colorado. With a couple minutes left in the show, Brad, what's your final take on this week and Week 7, and what are you looking most forward to?
This week's games are not as challenging as some of the other weeks that we've had. I like the Cincinnati game. That's going to be a fun game to watch. Tennessee Titans.
Yep.
I'm just excited about fantasy football and what we're going out of it.
Yeah.
I've had a tough beginning of the year. I've started to finally get some wins behind my belt and everything, and I'm sitting at that number 5 position, looking to creep up into the top 3 here, going into the second half of the season here.
Yeah, no, and I'm with you, man. I had a struggle last week. I won one fantasy week by 1 point and lost another league by 1 point, all because of the kickers in the Bills game, because they went for it on a 4th and inches instead of kicking the tying field goal. But that's fantasy. That's every week, people. You're going to really enjoy it. Some week you're going to go, why aren't you throwing it to this person, and why aren't you throwing it to that person? And he got me 50 points last week, and this week he gets me 0. So what are they doing? But we really appreciate you following us live every Sunday morning here at Last Gasp Fantasy Sports Podcast. Come check us out. We appreciate it. Follow, like us on Facebook and YouTube, and we'll check you next week.